What's up everyone? Welcome to another Joel Arsenault YouTube video. If you've been following along, you probably already know that I brought home a couple of Kawasaki 900 triples when I returned from visiting the Jetski brothers. Both of these engines have at very least a few issues, and so in this video I'm going to tear them apart, take a look inside, figure out what's wrong with them, figure out what we got to do to fix them up, and then maybe do a little bit of speculation on what these engines will be used for. If you guys want to support me on Patreon, there is a link in the description below. Every little bit helps. A huge shout out to Evan Kelly, who is my latest Patreon member. Thank you very much, Evan. I appreciate it. If you guys want to see some unedited footage, some extras, outtakes, and random nonsense, there is a link in the description below to my second channel, which is called Lowered Expectations, so feel free to check that out. I have been playing around in my garage all day, organizing, cleaning, throwing things out, moving stuff up to my attic, all sorts of stuff like that. I had these two 900 engines and I was going to move them into a corner, and then I thought, you know what? It's probably a better idea if I actually pull these things apart and find out what's wrong, or get an idea of what's wrong inside. That way, if I come across a good deal on eBay or something, or if somebody asks me if I need a crankshaft, I will know if I need a crankshaft, I'll know if I need pistons, cylinders, whatnot. So what I'm gonna do, I've already started tearing this apart, and it looks pretty nasty from stuff like the reed valves and rust on the crank. This is the one that has a decent top end. It had the red head on it and the red exhaust, and from the look of it, probably wasn't gonna be very long before it blew up, so I'm going to continue tearing it apart. I just got all of the cylinder nuts off, so little crack there. Pull the cylinder off and see what it looks like inside here. Oh boy, she's had moisture in her at some point or another. This piston has markings on it are still showing up, Sharpie marks. It didn't take too long to find damage to this, well, I was gonna say crankshaft, but connecting rod, which probably means that the crankshaft is bad and it needs to be taken apart to change the rod. But the wrist pin has not only visible, but I can actually feel some pitting in the pin. Bearing looks rusty, and there are marks in the connecting rod that I can feel with my fingernail quite easily. You know what? I don't like regular circlips, but I like these snap ring ones even less. Oh yeah, this engine needs a new crankshaft, or a complete crankshaft rebuild. I'll have to check to see if the clearance is okay, and the cylinders are a little bit rough. They're going to need a honing, so hopefully I don't need to oversize. Yeah, I guess I don't know if the pistons are oversized. Actually, they are 1 millimeter oversized according to the top of that one. Bearing number 2, I don't know if it's picked up on camera, but that grease looks pretty nasty. There are some pitting marks there. This connecting rod actually looks good, or like somebody ran a hone through it, so I'm not really sure. It looks a little bit too good, actually. I think maybe somebody honed that out. But somebody's had this engine apart and used some Scotch-Brite on these pins, and they definitely should have just been replaced. This pin has quite a bit of pitting on it, and I'm assuming the connecting rod doesn't really look any better. So far we have 2 pistons that might be okay, and one that has hammer marks in the top of it and definitely is not okay. This bearing looks nasty. Let's find out if this rod looks just as nasty as the first one, or if, oh yeah, we can just You can just stop questioning right now because it definitely looks, somebody ran some Scotch-Brite or something through it, but it still looks pretty bad. Guarantee it's bad. That is pure nasty right there. I suspect every single bearing in this needs to be replaced. A little bit of tappy and, oh yeah, all sorts of nasty in there. When you can scrape the nasty off the bottom of the case, that's when there's too much nasty. Stay. Cases look good as far as I can tell. They're going to need some major cleanup. This rod is absolute garbage, I feel, by the sound of that. Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh. Okay, yeah, not even a question. This crankshaft needs to be built for sure. So we can set all these parts aside now. We know we've got good cases. I'm going to take a closer look at the cylinders, I guess, and we'll see what I think of those. They're right here, so. Cylinders look really good, actually. Yeah, there's some discoloration from rust, but I'm pretty sure it will come out with a hone. I've never seen 900 cylinders before. They have this weird cutaway in the liner that almost looks like it's supposed to have a second set of transfer ports. Curious. I now have this engine apart as far as I need to go. I can now see everything that I'm going to need to take care of inside here. And so now I'm going to jump into the other engine and see what we find in there. Lots of surprises, I bet. I got it stripped down, basically ready to split the cases. I just got to pull the pistons off. And I was looking at this crank. Everything about this engine looks really clean. It hasn't had a lot of water in it. So I was thinking to myself, finally, I'm going to have a good crankshaft. This is what happens all the time. People run their engines for way too long, and eventually the clearance gets too much, the piston skirts crack, and then that goes into the bottom. Hopefully the cases aren't damaged. I mean, with my luck, if I flip this over, there's probably going to be a hole through the bottom of the case. Yep, the case is ruined. The GoPro was having a really hard time picking this up, so hopefully it shows up better with the iPhone. It's not nearly as bad as I made it out to be in that last clip, but as you can see, there is a crack here. Fortunately, no material has actually been pushed out, so I can just attack this with a die grinder, cut a little groove on the inside and the outside, and then weld it up. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. If you don't replace your two-stroke pistons, they will develop a lot of play, and after they do, they start slapping around, the skirts crack, pieces of the skirt go down into the cases, and this is exactly what happens. So, yeehaw. This piston doesn't, piston pin or wrist pin doesn't look great, but looks a heck of a lot better than the last one. Connecting rod. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm assuming when I pull the C-rad apart, I'm going to see the exact same thing. This one actually looks good. This one doesn't have any water damage look to it. I don't know exactly what I'm looking at here, but this is probably bearing cage. And inside through this slot, I can see that whatever is turning in there is not roller bearings, so I think this rod is actually pushing directly against the pin. I think that's what I can see. Not sure though. Anyway, I'm going to split the cases. We got another crank to rebuild. All right. See how nasty it is. Okay, you can see very clearly something made contact with the case. So the connecting rod pushed a bunch of stuff in there. The top case appears to be in good shape. There's a little scuff mark there. But yeah, the top case is okay. That's good. The crank. Okay. That rod bearing doesn't sound great. This one obviously completely shot. Oh, we got one good one. We got one good bearing on the mag side. I just ran the hone through this cylinder and it's gonna need at least first oversize. There are some fairly deep grooves in it. So it's gonna need to be bored out, which means it's gonna need a new set of pistons. I could use the 1/over pistons from the other engine, but I'll probably just get a new set for each. I've got the parts all laid out on this table over here. Got the cases and cylinders all put together just to make them a little more compact for storage. And I've got a bin for each. We're going to need some bits and pieces for sure to get these things back together and up and running, but definitely not the biggest projects that I've ever taken on. I'm going to try not to spoil this too much for you guys, but as you can see, I have a whole horde of crankshafts out on this table. This is not all of the crankshafts that I need to rebuild, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here in total. There is a 6th one that you guys haven't been told about yet. Some of you might be able to guess what it is. This is the crankshaft out of the engine with the red head, the first one that I worked on in this video, and just looking at it, it looks really nasty, but then when you try to turn the bearings, well, it's pretty obvious that it needs a rebuild. A bunch of the bearings are either stuck or really, really noisy. Also, the connecting rods have a lot of discoloration from corrosion, so yeah, they're going to need to be replaced. This one is the second one that I worked on in this video, which looks really good other than the fact that, well, the bearings sound noisy, and this rod is completely seized and the cage is all mushing out through the side. As I fully expected before I looked at these engines, I have two 900 triples that are going to need complete rebuilds, including the crankshafts. It is unfortunate that this style or type of crankshaft actually uses the web in the pin as one component, and so I will probably have to replace all 6 webs. That's 3 for each engine. Very likely the lower rod bearing has damaged those pins, and so they will all have to be replaced. I'm not 100% sure what these engines will be used for, but I am sure that they're going to be sitting for a while because they're definitely not priority projects. I have been considering putting one on the Mini, adapting it to the transmission and jamming it underneath the hood on that, but other than that, I'm not terribly sure. Well, that's gonna do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. I recently passed the milestone of 5,000 subscribers, and I want to say thank you to all of you who watch my videos. A huge thanks to those of you who are supporting me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. And a big shout out to Evan Kelly, who is my latest Patreon member. If you guys want to get involved in that, there is a link in the description below to my Patreon. And if you want to see extras, outtakes, and all sorts of random nonsense, I also have a secondary channel linked below, which is called Lowered Expectations. I was actually thinking about putting this stuff on Lowered Expectations because I don't know what I'm going to use these engines for. I don't know when they're going to be on the channel next, and I have no idea when I'm going to be building them. But I figured it was part of the Joel Arsenault YouTube experience, and I would share that with you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.